coming in. So Leslie, we're at 5:29, and so we'll be going live at 5:30.
Perfect.
And if I could make we're going to go live right now, but if I could make a quick request on behalf of Laurel. Laurel is collecting our minutes for the meeting. Could you reiterate the motion and identify who makes the motion and who seconds the motion before we take the vote? I think that will help with her being able to record the minutes. So with that, I think we're good to begin.
Great. Okay. And yes, it is promptly 5:30. So we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. And I'll conduct a roll call. Let's see. I'm just going to look at the screen. Robin Smith.
Hello. Hi, me. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Robin.
Meredith. Hi.
Sorry, Meredith Matthews. You frozen, Meredith? Oh, we'll give her a moment. Frank Wilson.
Yes.
And let's see. I know Rex Bone is absent. And
Elaine is out also.
And is also absent. So we'll just wait for Meredith to get back.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last name. Absent?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Elaine Hogan. It's Meredith. No, don't see her yet. Well, I'll go ahead and, I guess we kind of need, we'll just wait. We need her for quorum, so we'll just hold on a moment. Oh, we do have Steve Madrone joining
Leslie,
us.
so we have Steve coming in as well.
Super. Hi, Steve.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you. Welcome, Steve Madrone. Thank you. You're here because Rex Bone is not, so it's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here with you all.
And I just got a text from Meredith that she got kicked out and is trying to rejoin. So we don't, but since we do have quorum, we'll get started. I'll just send her a message. Maybe. Okay. Since it is also a holiday, I do want to kind of be respectful of everyone's time and keep the meeting moving if at all possible. Oh, here she comes. Great.
Good.
Sorry, I'm on my phone because I can't get on my computer. I'm sorry.
It's been that kind of a day. Don't worry.
Yeah. We've all been there, Meredith. So thank you for adapting to the times. So we'll move on from roll call to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA board and will be enacted upon by one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a board member or member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to pull an item or make comment on anything on the consent calendar? Okay. So then we will entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Meredith Matthews. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Robin Smith. So just to repeat that before we vote, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar made by Meredith Matthew and seconded by Robin Smith. We'll go ahead and do a voice vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes unanimously with board member Elaine Hogan absent. Okay, and we will move on to item number 3, oral and written communication. This is the time for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on the agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and on the time permitted to each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I always like to check. Okay, I see no one raising their hands, so we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to item number 4, which is our approve resolution 2022-03, a resolution of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of Humboldt Waste Management Authority pursuant to Brown Act provisions due to a state of emergency. And I'll turn it over to our director, Jill Duffy.
Great, thank you, Leslie. As you noted, we are recommending that the board approve resolution 2203. And the resolution basically provides the necessary findings that as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency, that meeting in person would present eminent risk to the health and safety of participants. As noted in the staff report, on September 16th, Governor Newsom signed AB 361, which revised the Ralph M. Brown Act, which continues the governor's executive order N-2920, and that would pertain to the teleconference rule waivers. And this particular provision will run through January 1st of 2024. Basically, AB 361 is going to allow the HWMA board, its subcommittees, and its executive advisory committee to meet virtually, provided that a state proclaimed state of emergency exists, as well as state and local public health officials impose or continue to recommend these social distancing measures. So, approval of the resolution, I'm sure many of you are already beginning to see this floating through your respective councils and board, but basically approval of the resolution is going to permit meetings under these provisions for a period of 30 days. After 30 days, the board would need to renew its resolution. So unless things were to change, you'll probably see this resolution coming forward again at the January meeting. And so this would be all consistent with requirements of 361, and that just pertains as far as that. So we're just looking for the board to go ahead and adopt resolution 2022. I can't say it now. 2022-03.
Thank you. Are there any questions, members of the board?
Just one. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we don't do a meeting in December. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it would be taken back up at the meeting in January.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any
I would
other
make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Thank you, Frank.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Robin. And before we go on to a vote, I just want to open it up for public comment just to see if any members of the public, since especially this has to do with, public access to the meetings, if anyone's out there who wants to chime in on this. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. Is there any more discussion from members of the board? Okay. We have a motion by Frank Wilson and a second by Robin Smith for staff recommendation, which is to approve resolution 2022-03, a resolution of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority, authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority pursuant to Brown Act provisions due to a state of emergency. Okay, and with that, we'll we'll go ahead and take the vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, motion passes unanimously with Director Hogan absent. And we'll just keep rolling right to item number 5, where we have on our agenda receive preferred consultant recommendation from Humboldt County Solid Waste Local Task Force and authorize chair to execute an SB 1383 compliance service agreement. And it looks like we have a presentation here getting ready. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay. Well, thank you, Leslie. And also in the interest of time, but also making sure that we're fully informing the board of some activities that have been occurring, especially since Supervisor Madrone has, this will be his first meeting. So this is actually a really big thing that's happening. So I do have a short presentation, which contains a summary of the regional SB 1383 activities to date, the process for recommendation of the SB 1383 consulting services, as well as the share of cost that participating agencies have agreed to. So tonight we are recommending that the board authorize the executive director to execute the attached consulting services agreement, which is in your board packet, following review by General Counsel with Edgar and Associates in order to provide HWMA and non-HWMA jurisdictions with assistance with SB 1383 legislation compliance services in an amount not to exceed $156,035. So as many of our board members know, SB 1383 was the short-lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Act, and it was signed into law by Governor Brown in 2016. And it represents one of the most significant waste reduction efforts and a mandate to be adopted in California over the last 30 years. SB 1383 is going to require the state to reduce organic waste, which would be food waste, green waste, paper products, et cetera, and their disposal by 75% by 2025. In other words, what's going to be happening is the state is going to be relying on local government to reduce organic waste disposal by more than 20 million tons annually by 2025. The law is also requiring that the state increase edible food recovery by 20% by 2025. And beginning in January 1st of 2022, which is just about a month and a half from now, all cities and counties in California are required to have in place mandatory organics collection program, enforceable ordinances, an outreach program, procurement requirements, an edible food recovery program, and updates to the existing diversion programs that you have. The statute further dictates jurisdictional compliance by January 1st of 2022 for the majority of programs and January 1st of 2024 for others. Those others are going to be those communities that are eligible for low population waivers. So by way of a quick little background on this little slide here, the Humboldt County Solid Waste Task Force is comprised of staff representatives from Arcata, Blue Lake, Eureka, Ferndale, Fortuna, Rio Dell, Trinidad, and the County of Humboldt. And following the recommendation of the ad hoc group, the SB 1383 ad hoc group, the task force was requesting that HWMA take the lead in circulating a request for proposals, and that was presented to the HWMA Board of Directors on July 8th. The board authorized that staff would coordinate with the task force to develop and solicit proposals in response to the regional SB 1383 Organics Planning and Compliance Services Plan. We prepared a request for proposal for SB 1383 and Organic Regional Compliance Services, which was reviewed and approved by the Humboldt County Solid Waste Task Force members at a special meeting which was held on August 30th of 2021. After their review and approval, we then released that RFP, and it was circulated for 30 days, and we received 4 responsive proposals by the submittal deadline of October 1st. 2021. So the scope of services is going to include key deliverables related to the compliance plan roadmap, organics processing and collection, edible food recovery, procurement, and waste management structure. The deliverables are expected to aid in the establishment of broad legal authority recommendations to existing municipal code for each jurisdiction. And it's going to describe at a high level the critical pathways which is going to be necessary for the enablement of expansion of existing food recovery and organic diversion programs and identification of new programs and policies as is going to be appropriate. We are looking at taking a regionalized approach, which is going to help with a comprehensive analysis, including evaluation of compliance obligations, the assessment of resource gaps and staffing needs, and an analysis of rates and HWMA's waste management fee. So the SB 1383 ad hoc committee was comprised of representatives from Arcata, Eureka, Fortuna, and the county of Humboldt, as well as HWMA. We had one of our staff members. There were several meetings that were held in order to evaluate the 4 submitted proposals. And these were the submitting consulting firms. And they further then invited the 3 top proposers for interviews on October 28th and October 29th. The ad hoc members recommended Edgar and Associates as the most qualified firm to provide the needed services, and that information was presented at a special meeting of the Solid Waste Task Force on Monday, November 1st. And this was the following ranking of the remaining proposers. So before I quite hit there, one thing I want to make sure that board members are aware, Edgar and Associates, we do have Evan Edgar attending the meeting with us today. He is the principal, and Edgar and Associates is an environmental engineering firm which is based out of Sacramento, and they specialize in solid waste management, recycling, composting, and renewable energy. And they exhibited a very strong understanding of the local waste, the recycling industry, and our local infrastructure. Edgar and Associates is currently working with the city of Burbank, Yolo County, and the city of Napa. And over the last several years, they have assisted approximately 25 other public entities on SB 1383 compliance. And as you'll note in your board packet, there is a link that helps expand some of their experience that would be relevant to Humboldt County. So the local task force unanimously directed that the chair of the Humboldt County Solid Waste Local Task Force recommend to the HWMA Board of Directors at tonight's meeting to enter into a professional agreement with Edgar and Associates for the SB 1383 and organic compliance services, and that HWMA serve as lead for project administration with assistance from the participating jurisdictions representatives, and that those participating jurisdictions also contribute to a share of costs to assist in the service funding through letters of commitment. One thing I do want to note is that Edgar and Associates is going to prioritize guiding eligible jurisdictions through SB 1383's low population waiver, as well as SB 619 provisions, which local jurisdictions may begin submitting to CalRecycle on March 1st. This would entail the submittal of a notification of intent in order to comply with the regulations, because local jurisdictions are not ready to implement 100% or to be 100% compliant with SB 1383 on January 1st. So there's going to be some actions that we need to take. So by having a notification of intent, because we don't have the organics residential collection in place by January 1st, we would, all of your jurisdictions would be considered in violation. So having the notification of intent would require that CalRecycle waive the administrative civil penalties for SB 1383 violations if the local jurisdiction is then implementing action and a schedule which is then proposed in their NOI. So Edgar and Associates is prepared to work with the jurisdictions to develop that notification of intent for the jurisdictions by February of 2022. So another component of this is that the jurisdiction representatives agreed to a cost share formula to cover the proposed project cost of $156,000. The formula was based first on the county's obligation under 1383 for organics capacity assessment and processing planning responsibility, and they have put forward a commitment of $100,000. We are then looking at having the other jurisdictions pay the remainder of the share of cost based on a base fee of $3,000 plus, based on the population, a percentage of the remainder based on a proportional population here. And we then have our remaining amount per jurisdiction. And this will bring us to the $156,000. HWMA is proposing to offset the funds for our member agencies so that the total due by jurisdictions is corrected. You'll have to forgive me because as I'm working through this, I can only see your faces on the side of the screen now. So it's completely covered up for me. But this is what we're looking at in order to provide the necessary funding for 1383. I do want to note that the cities of Fortuna and Trinidad are not member agencies. So you'll note that their share of cost is not being subsidized by HWMA. They'll be bearing their fair share right there. So we have received written confirmation by all 8 jurisdictions, and they've provided their letters of commitment this afternoon. We got the last one in at Blue Lake just shortly before we went live. HWMA will serve as the lead for project administration and coordination with assistance from the city or county representative that has been working with 1383. As tasks are completed, HWMA will invoice participating jurisdiction for their share of the cost of the completed work. And should a participating jurisdiction request specific or extra work that falls outside of the consultant's work plan, the jurisdiction will be responsible for 100% of the cost for that share of work. And this is what we are requesting that the board do. As I opened up at the beginning of the meeting, this is the recommendation that we receive the recommendation from the Solid Waste Task Force. We accept the letters of funding commitment, providing up to $127,942.13 from participating jurisdictions, and that we approve HWMA budget funding and to authorize the transfer of up to $30,000 from the undesignated reserves. This was not an item that was budgeted as part of our budget process last year. So if we need to transfer, that's what we're asking for. Furthermore, that the board would authorize the executive director to execute an agreement between HWMA and Edgar and Associates following final review and approval by general counsel, and to provide additional direction as appropriate. I would ask Leslie if you would invite Robin to provide any comments. When I say Robin, I mean Robin Prasker with the City of Eureka.
Thank you. Robin Prasker, do you have any additional comments? I know.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. My name is Robin Prasker with the City of Eureka, and I actually have a little bit of info to share on behalf of Donna Wood of the City of Eureka, who is the chair of the Humboldt County Solid Waste Local Task Force, but was unable to be here tonight. So forgive me if I overlap a little bit with the great foundational knowledge that Jill shared. So I'll go ahead and get started. So regional waste management and coordination is reaching an exciting peak of strong collaboration and a unified desire to leverage our commonalities to better serve our entire county. This SB 1383 mandate is the push that has made this coordination necessary. As you know, with SB 1383, it's a very huge mandate, and it's more or less similar for every jurisdiction in the state. Though our little cities in the Spritter County are so different in so many ways, now is the time to recognize how being similar and how we manage our waste will help us reach regional state compliance and create an economy of scale. And in order for these positive changes to happen, the LTF created an ad hoc committee, as you know, which assisted HWMA with the RFP process for the firm that's been brought to you tonight. And the firm that has been recommended tonight really stood out among the rest, and their selection was unanimous, as you know. And the process was thorough, and the decision was not made lightly. Edgar & Associates, the recommended firm, clearly has extensive experience in waste management in both the public and private sector. Notably, their permitting of 35 composting and anaerobic digestion facilities in their career has made us very confident that they will help us figure out the most logical and cost-effective way for us to become compliant with the mandatory organics collection mandate, arguably the biggest hurdle for our region. Additionally, they have been involved with the rulemaking of SB 1383 and subsequent revisions. They know the specific reporting requirements, like Jill touched on, and the deadlines, and how to navigate the nuances of the rulemaking and how they vary depending on jurisdiction, population, tonnage, and timing. But what really stood out from the review process was Edgar & Associates' personal touch and true passion in this line of work. We feel confident in the recommendation of Edgar & Associates to assist county and every city within to appropriately, cost-effectively, and efficiently reach compliant with SB 1383. Jill touched on the timing a little bit, but I'll touch on it as well. Timing is of the essence. The enforcement penalties are looming January 1st, but part of this recommended consultant's proposed scope is a compliance roadmap to display to the state that we have a plan with strict timelines that we'll stick to, and they have extensive experience and knowledge in helping jurisdictions like ourselves do that. And the state has the discretion to make accommodations for those like us that will be actively working towards compliance. And this is the step we need to take with a firm who's qualified to provide the support and guidance we need to navigate this mandate. And, while this is a statewide mandate, we know it affects us differently. We're hidden behind the redwood curtain. We're isolated from more urbanized areas of the state who have ample access to waste infrastructure. Often diverting waste here means we're creating our own infrastructure or getting creative and inventing our own programs. Rest assured, each of us recognize our limitations and our challenges, as does Edgar & Associates, who's prepared to navigate this process with us. And of course, reflected in the unified support by both our LTF ad hoc committee and the greater LTF, who has brought this recommendation to. So thanks so much for allowing me to share some insight on our experiences on the LTF and this recommendation. And we've been working so hard on this since June. It's November now. I can't believe how long this has taken. But we just hope that this goes tonight. And I'm available if anyone has any questions. So Jill gave a really thorough presentation. So I think we got all the info we need to.
Thank you, Robin.
Leslie, I would just offer also that both myself and Robin are available to respond to any questions, but I also want board members to know that Evan Edgar is also here. So if there are any questions, I would invite him to also respond to some questions.
Great. And maybe before that, if it's okay with the board, if Evan Edgar, if you just want to introduce yourself and then we can see if the board has any questions.
Well, thank you, Board of Directors and Robin. That was a great introduction. And I'm live from Sacramento. I've been downtown here since 1993. Boutique engineering, environmental engineering firm. We do a lot of compost, anaerobic digestion permitting for small cities. We don't really work in the big urban centers or LA, but we really enjoy working in Yolo and Tulare and the small rural counties, and that's our expertise. And we've done a lot of small scale anaerobic digestion and composting, and we were involved with 1383 from the very beginning. My firm is also a lobbying firm. We represent the California Compost Coalition, all the organic composters in California, about 35 of them. So we do all their policy with regards to what is wishful composting and what is truly compostable, and stop the greenwashing. I'm really excited about this project because last night I was watching the Nordic fish farm project coming to town, and I saw all types of opportunities there. I like the synergy there is unbelievable on the opportunities in order to keep everything local. And one of the things that I see is with the state permitting is that keep all green waste local and try to keep all food waste local. Keep it a circular economy in your own backyard, cut down on vehicle miles traveled, really big on CEQA, greenhouse gases, and sustainability reporting. So my firm is proud to be selected. In fact, I'm so happy about this. I'm buying an office in downtown Eureka so I can open up an office and open up the office in Eureka as part of the climate refugees out of Sacramento are leaving the valley due to the heat and the drought. And a lot of my friends and family are moving up to the great coast up there. So I'm looking forward to being local and serving the authority.
Thank you, Evan, Edgar, and I think I can speak for the board. We look forward to meeting you then in our very own region here. Are there any, before we get into public comment and questions, and discussion, are there any questions from members of the board? I have just a small technical question. Oh, and go ahead, Steve Madrone. I'll wait.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Let me see. I'm going to put on my headphones so you can hear me better. There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, can you? Yeah, okay, great. So being the new guy here on the block, so to speak, I'll probably ask a couple questions just because I'm getting up to speed, so bear with me. Jill, if you could put the spreadsheet back up of the cost share arrangements between the cities, the county, and the whole group, that would be helpful, or whoever shared the screen on that. Yeah, great.
Yeah, give me a moment to find my presentation now. Hold on 1 second. Okay, give me half a moment. I'm working around a few things. I think I've got them all now. Can you see them okay, Steve?
Yeah, excellent. Great. Thank you very much. So again, being new, there's probably a lot of things I just don't know that you're all up to speed with, but I'm looking at the percentage of population at 53%, but it looks like the county's covering almost 2/3 or 67% of the cost at the 100,000. And I guess that's because the flat rate only adds up to so much. And so the county's picking up the remainder. You know, I'm super supportive. Let me just be really clear. This is a fantastic thing we're getting into. I've been composting for 40 years. All 4 generations of Madrones here on my property are all composting. Leaves, grass clippings, food waste, so nothing leaves the property. And we produce over 100 bags of soil, really rich black soil every year from our little composting system here on our property. That's a value of about, 100 bags times what, $12 or something? You know, it's over $1,000 worth of soil. So I am absolutely a supporter of this. And I'm so glad it's coming around. And it looks like we've hired a fantastic consulting firm with great expertise to help us. I just was wondering what the explanation was for the county carrying a larger share than its population share.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, what you should know is that Tom Matson has been working to get a presentation on SB 1383 to the Board of Supervisors. I can't speak for all the jurisdictions, but we initially presented this information to our HWMA board back in at the February meeting, because what we were seeing was that the local staff just had an awful lot on their plate and, just hadn't been able to get the conversation moving forward with their respective councils for purposes of developing an action plan as well as the funding of what compliance was going to be. And so we presented it to the HWMA Board of Directors. Those representatives have been working with their staff, and with the local task force, we've been moving this forward. So you will be receiving a presentation from your staff shortly. SB 1383, basically, as noted, is going to represent just a complete overhaul of the way that we are managing materials in California. But first and foremost, one of the important things to note is the county is statutorily obligated to be performing the organics assessment and planning. And it was for that reason that Tom Matson said that they would be willing to put forward $100,000 in order to make sure that we have sufficient base funding to move this forward, because none of the jurisdictions had this particular item put into their budget. So he has available funding. I can't speak for certain as to his funding source that he's proposing to do, but it is in large due to the fact that the county has certain obligations above and beyond the other jurisdictions. Now then, Rio Dell, Blue Lake, Ferndale, and Trinidad, they are all going to be eligible for a 2-year waiver for compliance purposes. We really wanted to emphasize the importance of moving forward as a region, because it doesn't make sense to have a disjointed effort. And so the subsequent conversation is that recognition that, especially for those small jurisdictions, even coming up with $3,000 is going to be a bit of a hurdle. So between the 100,000 setting it at a base of 3,000 and then having the remainder percentage broken up on population, that's when you see that remaining amount per jurisdiction. So you'll see that, Eureka is 14,000, Arcata is 10,000. And so then HWMA is looking at helping to underwrite that, because again, the whole issue is everybody has to be in compliance January 1st, and not a single jurisdiction is ready to be in compliance. So this is going to get us onto a track where we're going to be able to demonstrate a commitment as well as the development of an action plan. And we'll be working very quickly with Edgar and Associates to make sure that we've got those low population waivers put into place, in addition to the notice of intent. So again, I don't know what kind of conversations your respective staff members have had with you, but these are the letters of commitment that we have received from each of the jurisdictions. I am aware that this is an approach which has been used for different projects that cost considerable amount. Some stormwater projects have been pretty successful in the implementation of Fortuna in the county, and so they're looking at something very similar. So I would say, if you wanted to hear, some more on that, I would reach out with Tom Matson.
Oh, thank you, Jill, very much through the chair. That was a very thorough explanation and totally understandable and very logical. And thank you for all of that understanding. I know where it's at now and fully support it. So thank you very much.
And thank you. And this is a pretty big project to walk into kind of towards the end of this. So I appreciate the question, and feel free to reach out anytime, and we're happy to walk you or any other board member through some of the process that we're going to be going through. Can I turn off my screen?
Sure. Were there any other questions? Okay. And I think my question, mine is very short, and I think I know the answer to it, but McKinleyville would be considered as part of the county in terms of this, and we're not looking at the separate. Perfect.
That is correct.
Okay, well, let's open it up for public comment, and then we'll come back for discussion. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment on this item? Linda.
Hi, I just want to express to you that how pleased Recology is that this direction is being taken, just with the cost of some of the things that we would have to do to implement this would be just beyond people's ability to understand. And having the Waste Authority perhaps being granted the lead with this and getting a consultant to work on this is going to be hugely important for all of you, and probably keep the sanity of your staff, because this is going to be really big and it's going to be talked about for quite a long time past my retirement. So it's just wonderful that this is happening, and I'm looking forward to working with the new ED and the consultant with however we can be of assistance.
And Linda, can I get your last name, please?
Wise, W-I-S-E, like the owl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make comment? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment and open it up for discussion by members of the board. Do any board members wish to discuss this item or make comment?
Yes, I had a question, I guess, a small one.
Sure, Frank.
Yeah, we're probably still pretty premature in this, I guess, in how this is going to be implemented. And my understanding is this consultant firm will give us direction on how we're going to carry it out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is Mr. Edgar, is he able to give us a little insight on how other jurisdictions are, I guess, collecting and separating this, the organic from the regular landfill waste? Because that's our stuff comes now. It kind of goes in these either recycle or you go into the landfill. How they're carrying that out to effectively separate it from what the people just put in their bins, even if they have a separate bin, it's going to be contaminated, and it seemed like it would. I'm having a hard time struggling how it's going to work. Nobody's been able to answer that so far.
Evan Edgar, I can answer the residential, and then there's commercial. On a residential side, you guys have been collecting green waste at the curb for a lot of years, and that should continue to stay local. West Green does a great job and keep all the green waste local. The expectation by CalRecycle in the first of the year that on a residential food waste is going to be combined with the residential green waste. Now, there's two ways you can do that. You can put it in a bucket or a bag program. And if you put it in a bucket and put the bucket within a green waste, then the green waste will get contaminated with a food waste. And then some of the local permits aren't valid when you combine food and green waste. West Green couldn't take it anymore because the food waste contaminates the green waste. And according to CalRecycle, you got to export it. So what I'm going to be recommending is to have some type of bag program, compostable bag program, so that when the food waste from residential goes into the residential green cart, that we can remove it. We can work with at the transfer stations and how to separate out the bagged food waste from the green waste, so that the bagged food waste will have a different home, and the green waste can keep on going to West Green Compost and other local composters. So that's on the residential side. And then, of course, there's a lot of public information outreach. Recology has done a great program with a Fantastic 3 in San Francisco. They've taken it throughout the Bay Area from Yuba County, so in rurals and urban. So Recology has had a really good outreach and public education to kind of educate the public what is truly compostable and what is not compostable. We don't want to add a lot of bioplastics or greenwashing and all this information, all this type of food waste in with the green waste if you can't take it out. So there'll be a lot of good public education outreach, and within the franchise agreement of each one of the cities, there's different obligations of the franchise hauler in order to have that education and outreach with public information, reporting, and monitoring. But that's expectation on the first of the year. Edgar Associates and the Compost Coalition, we helped sponsor SB 619 this year, which gave time and money to the local jurisdictions, starting that notice of intent that Jill Duffy was talking about is that there'll be no fines and penalties during the 2022 if we have a compliance schedule on when the programs start. So that's good. Plus, there's $270 million that we help get to CalRecycle from the surplus budget, and that will go back to local government. So that's going to help fund the program as well. That's on the residential side. I can leave it there and can talk about the commercial next if you have any questions on residential first.
I'm not as big a question on the commercial, because I think the commercial, you have a better control with the commercial people. I'm more concerned on the residential, where, like you say, I've never heard of the bag one before. I just see when that gets mixed with green waste that it's going to be awfully hard to keep it from contaminating. Get all the bags out of the green waste. That just doesn't.
Well, so true. I've been successful in other permitted facilities it's a 30-day permitting process where you have a floor sort, and it's only about 3 to 5%. You'd be surprised how, due to participation and even with a good education, we only get about 3 to 5% of the green waste is food waste. So it's not that much. And by putting it in a bag, it will allow us to remove it. And I got a policy through CalRecycle that by doing so, we can still call it green waste. So we don't contaminate the green waste in a way that it will no longer qualify. So we want to make sure that you can keep all the green waste local. Otherwise, in some markets, if you combine the food and green in a bucket program, it's all contaminated, you'll be forced to send it to a permitted food waste compost facility. And there's not one in the region right now. Or when the program will start, you would have to export all that commingled food and green waste, and nobody wants to see that. So I think that we can work with the franchise haulers and the cities and all the jurisdictions in order to develop a program, and at the permitted transfer stations to have a program to remove the bag food waste from the green waste. So I'll only have to deal with a food waste separately than a green waste. So that's my initial thoughts I put in my proposal.
Thank you.
Frank, if I could maybe further elaborate on just a couple things. First and foremost, part of the objective is going to be to identify that edible food which is divertible. So sometimes if people are unaware of how they can redirect food that would otherwise be utilized, instead of we would need to be developing a way in which that food is not going into the landfill, but if we've got restaurants that are overproducing food or whatever, getting that into some of the edible food recovery programs first and foremost. The second part is going to be kind of the chicken or egg question, which is, we don't currently have any food waste processing. So one of the key components is going to be looking at what processing options are available for the North Coast to consider, right? And then concurrently, we're going to be taking a look at the individual jurisdictions and what makes the most sense for the jurisdiction in terms of the curbside collection, whether it's residential or if it's going to be commercial. So there's a number of things that are happening all at the same time. It's not just a single linear line. We're going to have to be working with our jurisdictions because each one is slightly unique. The smaller jurisdictions will have a little bit more time before you're going to be required to be implementing these programs. And once we have secured the services of Edgar and Associates, then we'll be able to start evaluating all those different options so that we can bring something to the board, that you are able to wrap your arms around so that you can understand, okay, this is what we need to do in order to implement and be compliant with SB 1383.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or is there discussion? I see Board Member Madrone.
Thanks, Chair. Humboldt is got a very large population that I would call rural residential. We're not in, subdivision neighborhoods. There's a tremendous, probably about 80% of the land base in Humboldt is rural, and people in those areas don't live in a city. In cities, I can see how residential collection could work, like you described, Mr. Edgar, with bags that are within the green waste, keeping it separated, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of composting food waste in particular, I would hope that what we're going to do is create a system that incentivizes the most cost-effective way of handling kitchen food waste of all, and that is when we individually compost it at our own properties. I recognize that for those that live in an urban area, if you're on a small lot, it might seem like you can't really do it, but actually it doesn't take a lot of space to do it in. And if you do it properly, it's not smelly, and it doesn't actually attract animals and all that kind of stuff. When you actually mix your food waste with grass clippings and deciduous tree leaves like orchard leaves and all that kind of stuff, you end up with an incredible soil product that comes out of it. And so the more we do that, the less transportation there is, the less handling there is, the less contamination there is, and all that. So it would be really nice if we could set up a system that incentivizes that as the number one way we would like to do it. Handle it at your own household level. Nothing gets cheaper than that as far as fossil fuel use or handling costs and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it might be that if somebody doesn't put any food waste into their garbage, they get a reduced cost for the collection of their garbage or their green waste or whatever it might be. I don't have any green waste because all of my green waste basically goes in with my food waste and makes soil. And so, incentives, carrots, creating, good financial incentives to encourage, along with the education components you talked about, to educate people on all the various options for composting, how to do it properly, how to not have varmints coming, raccoons, bears, and all that. And in the rural areas, the bears, with the food waste going in right with the garbage, the bears figure that out really quick and they just zero right in on those cans. Even if they only go out the night before, they get knocked over all over the neighborhood. So we've got bears, right? We've got coons. We've got all these other issues in regards to how we handle our waste. So I guess I'm just trying to encourage us as we put our plan together to really think about how we can incentivize the most effective way of all, which is handling it at the individual level. Then it doesn't cost the public or the government anything, right? Frankly, and it turns into a very valuable product for that homeowner. Some people may not want to do it at their house, but neighborhoods can join together and find a neighborhood spot where neighborhoods can bring their food waste, their grass clippings, their leaves, and actually have a neighborhood composting system. And then beyond that, yes, we're looking at some large, more industrial processes with digesters, all those other kinds of things and stuff. But I just wanted to encourage us to really think really broadly and incentivize what is probably the most cost-effective way of all of treating it. So there's my little stump speech for the evening. Thank you.
Totally. And another aspect is that community composting, we got $5 million in the budget this year from CalRecycle to fund community compost, and we developed regulations to not have all the regulations for small-scale community compost. So there are incentives not to overregulate that at all because it can be done right and should be done right.
And I would just add just a couple more pieces. And this is part of what you're going to hear from Tom when he's able to give you the presentation. But SB 1383 is requiring mandatory curbside collection 100%. And of course, rural representatives and public work directors from these, more rural counties have been just in an uproar for over a year. Talking with Cal Recycle around it's not feasible financially, and certainly we've got some areas here in Humboldt County that you're not taking garbage trucks up, and some of our residents are miles off of the main road. So we've been working with them, and at the staff level, they're saying, oh, well, the legislation says 100%, curbside collection. So like I said, there's been considerable uproar around that. And there have been a number of, meetings and, kind of like, well, where's the sweet spot? And where they finally landed with the county is that you could be using data from the census tract information in order to see whether or not counties in some areas like Oric would be eligible for a low population waiver, whereas McKinleyville is not, by virtue of the density of the community. So I think one of the things that is important is that it is not just a singular, we're going to have one place where all organic material is going to be coming. I think that the only way that we're going to make this work affordably for our ratepayers, because ultimately that is who's going to be bearing the burden of this implementation, is to figure out what makes the most sense, within a community, or within a county, which is, larger than a few states, So, point well taken. And I think that as Tom is bringing this forward for the board conversations, I know he could really use some assistance on this. It's a huge undertaking for the county, whereas some of the cities, as I mentioned earlier, they're already going to be eligible for those low population waivers. But it's really important that we all be working together, because even though they're small right now, it doesn't remove them from the obligation 2 years from now. So it makes a lot of sense. Let's be coordinating all of our efforts and energy and really designing the best sort of program that we can.
Thank you, Jill. And I just want to jump in to really commend, the local task force team for pulling together and everyone working together on this. I think it's really significant. And just important to see all of our relative jurisdictions kind of banding together on some of these bigger issues, such as waste, housing, things like that. We really do need to plan together. And one of the things, Evan Edgar, in your proposal, I really appreciated your timeline and just the detail and it's measurable and clear scope of work. So, I'm happy that, you were selected unanimously for the project. And, I do think I'm excited to hear about the small scale community compost possibilities for some communities. There are, I'm not sure if it's come up yet, but there are a few organizations doing, like a bicycle based composting and a worm composting. And so I think it will be important to reach out to those various stakeholders within the planning to see, how to possibly expand on their efforts as well. Any other comments? I'm super excited about this too. So yeah, thanks to everyone. Any other comments or questions, I suppose? Okay, would anyone like to entertain a motion? And do you want us just to, can we say staff's recommendation, or do you want, okay. There's a lot of parts to that one.
There are a lot. So yeah, if somebody wants to just make the motion to approve staff's recommendation so we can move forward, that would be great.
Okay.
I would move staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Madrone.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Meredith Matthews. So we have Steve Madrone with the motion and Meredith Matthews seconding staff's recommendation. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, motion passes unanimously with board member Hogan absent. And thank you again, Evan, for taking the time, and Robin, and of course, Jill, for all of your work on this. And we will move on to item number 6, which is a standing item of board member reports. Are there any board members who wish to make a report at this time? Okay. Since it's a holiday, we'll just keep going. We'll close that item and go on to item number 7, the executive director's report.
So we have some exciting news to share. One is that I'm really happy to be able to report to the board that our final payment that was related to our $14 million in totality bonds. Our final payment of just over $848,000 was paid to Chase Bank in late October. And once that account is closed, our long-term debt obligations have been retired. So it's a really big deal. So that was completed. The other is that with respect to the timber harvest activities to date, unfortunately, with the early October rains, some of our logging had to come to halt. So we do have 4 loads of logs that are still on one of our log decks, and that will be accessible at the point that we have some dry weather again. So maybe midwinter, but it's probably going to be closer to summer. So the log deck is located within the unit, and the logging unit, and if they were to remove those logs, it would be a violation of our NTMP restrictions. So we just, the decision was made, go ahead and put the material to bed for the time being. Now, here's the really great news. The good news is that the timber volume removed was delivered, and we have received a higher amount than we were initially anticipating back in January. So we were anticipating that we would net about $180,000 at the time the board considered item. As of November 10th, we have received $262,000 for the logs, and we will see more revenue once the remaining logs are delivered to the mill. So really pleased with that. Board members will remember we do a lot of work very closely with Jim Abel and his foresters, and they really are a wonderful group to be working with. I want to make a couple of real quick introductions. And first is, you'll note that there's a person named Tracy Taylor who is observing our meeting. Tracy is HWMA's new Administrative Services Director, and she hit the ground on November 1st. Her first priority is working with the temporary controller in order to close the fiscal year 2021 books, and they are now preparing the materials necessary for the auditor's review of our books, which will be handled in mid-December. So she is also working with our interim controller in order to assess the accounting system and to initiate migration of data from our unsupported software to a new software system. So there's going to be a number of pretty heavy lifts that she's going to be working with us all on. And some of the critical tasks we're going to continue to have temporarily assigned to other staff members, such as Laurel, helping to facilitate some of these meetings with the record keeping and packet development, so that we can make sure that she is then gradually gaining those tasks once she starts getting her bearings around the organization. The other is we also have Peter Fuller, who is here. And so the last month has been continued ongoing support and coordination for the various executive director recruitment efforts. And Peter is here. He has sold his house. They are on the road. They are in Flagstaff now, and they will be reaching Humboldt County shortly. And I do want to note, happy birthday, Peter, to your wife. So they're definitely, kind of going. So, and with that, I would just offer that this is my last board meeting. So you all won't be seeing me at these meetings. I will be available to provide whatever assistance is necessary for Peter period through a transitional period and potentially later, but it's been a real pleasure to be working with everyone. And you really have some amazing, talented staff, and they are dedicated and they are incredibly hardworking. And we wouldn't be where we are today without all of their efforts. So I really want to make a special shout out to Eric Keller-Heckman, in addition to Tony Heacock, as well as Tracy now coming on board, and Laurel and Elder. I think you're probably out there somewhere too. And I just really want to thank and appreciate everybody for all of their assistance to me over the last 9 years of service. So thank you. So I would just ask if you want to ask Peter anything.
Yeah, congrats, Jill. Firstly, it just hit me when you said this was your last board meeting. That part hadn't really. Part two. I'm happy for you. Miss you for sure. Does anyone have any questions for Peter or anything they want to say to Jill? Okay. Well, welcome.
Linda's got her hand.
Linda's got her hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were asking of the board or not, but I wanted to make sure my hand was up in case I got a chance to say something. I want to say that it's been a pleasure to work with you, Jill, through, our ups and downs, with, the stuff that's happened in waste and all the changes that have been happening throughout the years. And it's really been a pleasure to work with an organization led by someone who really sees the vision in creating a whole community that really is centered around waste and making the best decisions for our community. So thank you. It's been a pleasure. So we went from wet waste to dry waste. It's all been good, and thank you so much. And I hope that we still see you, and I'm sure that I will because there's still a lot of exciting stuff going on that I'm sure you're not going to be able to stay away from. It stays in your blood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And Nancy.
I want to echo much of what Linda said. It's really been extraordinary working with Jill for 9 years. There's been a lot. Many books could be written about all that has been done over these last 9 years, and the authority and the community has been so well served by Jill, by her enormous talent, her ability to see a lot of issues simultaneously and juggle a lot of components all at the same time and bring this organization further along. So, I just want to thank Jill for very, very, very dedicated 9 years of really stellar, from my perspective, not as an employee, but as almost a colleague, just a very just stellar leadership of the organization. And then I also want to welcome Peter. It was a long, very thorough search, and I think the agency will be very well served by Peter coming forward.
And Leslie, I'd just like to add one more thing. And Linda, it's kind of funny. She and I both got started in wastewater industry, many, many, many years ago. But I think one of the things that I'm really pleased by with your board, as well as the local task force with this SB 1383 effort, the last time that we saw this kind of regionalization in the solid waste industry was when it was the formation of the Humboldt County Waste Management Authority.
Wow.
It was Trinidad, it was Fortuna, it was all of the jurisdictions that are serving on HWMA. And so I see that there's an opportunity for us to finally let some of those issues of the past kind of, help inform us moving forward. But what you guys did today is really monumental. And so, Peter, you're in a really unique stage right now as you're going to be coming in to help hold this group together and move forward regionally. And I think it's really, really exciting. And I thank you. And Nancy, I wish I could say we've only been working together 9 years, but I have most appreciated the many years that in many capacities that we've had an opportunity to work together. And I thank you. Without your guidance, when I have encountered certain things, as we're constantly looking for the sweet spot, I don't know that we would have navigated as well, but it's all been to the best interests of this organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And and welcome, Peter. I think the board's, it was really great getting to participate, in the recruitment process and getting to know you a little bit that way. I really look forward to getting to know you more. Definitely, travel safely over the next, little while, and for sure, reach out. I think, many of us are really happy to help you get to know the area and really make sure you feel welcome here. And Casey, welcome also. Look forward to getting to know you as well. And thanks for coming on board.
We also have Donna Marias. She's got her hand up.
Thank you. There's that other section. Donna Morais, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, please. First, I'd like to welcome Peter and congratulate Tracy. I wish you both the very best. You've got some big shoes to fill. And then I would like to commend Jill. She has made coming to these board meetings, because I'm just the public, but she has made it informative and entertaining and extremely knowledgeable. So we appreciate all your time and effort, and thank you so much, Jill, and we wish you the best on retirement.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I do your capacity for diligence and detail, and you really know what you're talking about, and you do your research, and I've learned a lot from being on this board and working with you, and I look forward to continuing to move some of the things forward that you've helped get started. So thank you. Your leadership is it has a presence here that continues on.
Thank you.
Well, with that, thank you. And we will move on to item number 8, which is closed session. And
here's the thing. With the approval of item H, which was Peter's contract, there is no need to meet into closed session. So we are actually complete.
Okay. Well, so we will pull item number 8 from the agenda. And I guess with that, we will adjourn the meeting.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Meredith.
Good night, Jill.
Good night, Linda.
It's the Waltons.
It is.
Good night, Noisy.